other games we got Flashpoint.
Sentinels of the Multiverse. Ghost Stories. White Moon.
Yeah.
Oh, so, wow! He's like he's.
Yeah, I'm thinking where to start. I guess the easiest to describe is Flashpoint.
And then we go with White Moon and the best game.
So we talked about Pandemic already, but if you didn't listen to us going about Pandemic, so Flashpoint is a game where you are playing a firefighter. In fact, everybody's playing a firefighter, and you as a team have to save people from a house or an apartment while fire is spreading and explosions are happening. And each player has a different firefighter role, like the captain who can command other people around and give them free movement actions, or you could be the guy who's driving the fire car, who's really good at shooting fire with water from the outside. And
the rescue girl, I really like to play her.
Yeah. And there's a paramedic, I think, and so there's similar to
and the hazmat guy.
There's different roles who get bonuses or additional actions or new actions on certain things, certain movements. You have to go into that house. You can break down walls, open doors, go through, and there's hotspots in the house that generally tend to. So after each turn, someone rolls and then determines on the grid where the next fire is starting.
You start with the smoke.
Yeah, where it's first smoke, and then once smoke either gets a connection to fire, it's flashing over. So let's say you have a line of smoke that is only one tile away from fire, and if that tile becomes smoke or fire, the entire smoke line then flares up.
Like in real life, right?
And on the other hand, if you're rolling fire on a place that already has a fire on it, an explosion will happen, which then spreads in all four directions.
And can break down walls.
Yeah, and
to make it
propagates through. So it's really dangerous to have a line of fire, because if some explosion is happening in the middle, it will propagate to the outsides and then either destroy the walls or do something other, like kills or not kill.
You have like black cubes that you put onto the board whenever a fire hits a wall, and when there's 2 cubes, that means the wall is gone. You only have a limited amount of these black cubes, so once you've used them all up, and they never get back into like the bank, it means you lost the game because the building is coming down. Which happened once or twice for us, I guess.
Similar to other co-op games, there's only one victory condition in a whole bunch of you lost the game conditions. The victory condition is you have to save
7.
I think 7. Yeah, 7.
And you cannot lose more than 4 people in the same time frame.
So losing conditions are you cannot lose more than 4. The house may come down and destroy everything.
And I think if all firefighters are paralyzed at the same time. I think that was also, but I'm not sure about that.
I think they're just gonna. It could be that it's just those 2, but
but 2 versus 1.
Those 2 will happen quite frequently, depending on what's going on.
Which kind of if you play easy mode or advanced mode, if you go for the easier apartment that has more walls that contain fire, or if you go to the loft, which is basically like 3 huge rooms with not really any walls in there, and fire spreads there more quickly, like obviously.
So the interesting thing about rescuing people is you don't know where they are. So there's always like 3 blips on the map, and everybody who's seen Alien knows that a blip can be anything. In this case, blips can either be someone who needs to be rescued, or a blip can be nothing. Which, if fire hits one of those blips, it's turn around, and if it's a person, then it goes out of onto the you lost someone board, and if it's nothing, it just gets taken out of the game. So that could be a lucky draw. But that means also you have to go through each blip with your firefighter, turn it over to see is it a person, and then you have to drag them out and
it takes you 1 action extra
Yeah.
as a normal firefighter to like really drag them out.
Yeah, so the game, a turn is you have 4 actions typically that you can use either to fight fire or to move or to drive the car or to use the water gun on the car. You can also say, I can't really do anything at the moment, so I'm saving up actions, and you can save up to 4 for the next turn, so you could have theoretically 8 points of action.
Which helps a lot. I think this mechanic helps a lot. Because when you have like 1 or 2 actions left and you can't do anything, they don't get lost. But they really, really help you out the next turn.
It's also mitigating a problem that Pandemic has with...
I can't do anything.
It can happen that your role is so specialized and that there's nothing to do for you right now. That it's a little bit boring.
That's our neighbors. Sorry.
That's why it sounded like an airplane crashing. It was just, I think, a car or...
Yeah, it sounded like an SUV or a truck or a Jeep or something.
So the good thing about that is, yes, it can happen that there's a turn where you can't do much. For example, the driver who's really good at containing big fire spreads. At the start of the game, there's generally not that much to do, or if you just, snuffed out every fire, then there's not a lot to do, which is not great because, that turn you don't have something to contribute to the game, but you can just save up the actions and then next turn you get the more to do and have twice as much stuff to do, which is, I think... And
you have the means to do it and contain the fire.
It's a nice way to evenly distribute things to do over the entire game.
And I think it's... My frustration factor is less high with Flashpoint than with Pandemic, just because of that mechanic. That you can not only do your full move, but if you can't do anything valid or good for the game, for the progression of the game in that turn, that you save it up. Because with Pandemic, it often was that I was missing exactly 1 action to actually do something for the group to win the game. And other turns with other roles, it was just, there's nothing for me to do on the board. I just hop from space to space like planless, and just because I don't want to sit here and sip coffee or something. So that's why I like Flashpoint a bit more. Like from the scary ways to that influence the game, I find Pandemic cooler because you know what's coming. With Pandemic, you have a stack of cards that you draw your infections from, and the trash gets mixed in certain conditions, and you exactly know what's coming up. And you sometimes feel this paralysis that you know what's coming up and you don't know how to contain it, and you just like, With Flashpoint, you roll dice to determine where smoke or fire breaks out, and there's the luck factor that makes it more fun, and you're like hoping, oh, please, please, please roll good. But you can maybe wiggle your way out of the real fire problems, breakdowns coming up, just because you roll dice like a hero. Which Phil does.
Yeah.
He did that well.
Yeah,
we had the game with us in Malta. We played it in Malta with another group.
I would say in Pandemic, the progression of difficulty during a game is way more noticeable than in Flashpoint. Flashpoint has a mechanic to make it more difficult over time by introducing these hotspots that essentially, if you roll fire on a hotspot, you have to roll again. And that adds a new hotspot. But that didn't really feel that.
It was not.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, oh damn, I rolled. It can happen theoretically that you roll on 3 hotspots and then you have 3 or 4 new fires. But if you're lucky with your rolls and have a competent team, it's yeah, it's not as
It's
noticeable
almost,
as well. Now there's a new epidemic coming out, and suddenly the entire Europe is infected.
It's the hotspot thing is almost calming the game down a bit in versus the infection stack of pandemic.
And it's
it always gets worse.
So the difficulty will, for at least it felt for us, way more that the explosion and structural integrity
and the hazmat
is
shit.
more interesting. But Flashpoint a great alternative.
Nice thing.
If I would say if you like Pandemic, you will like Flashpoint, and if you like these games, it might be a good alternative to switch between. So if you're saying, I've played enough of Pandemic, I need something different, give Flashpoint a try.
Yeah, and the artwork is cool. It's nice.
And I think there's another game that has a very similar vibe and setup, but is about police. But we haven't played that yet. But that's, Flashpoint, also great way to play co-op.
And we played it with somebody who was a firefighter, or like not with a job, but with well, it's not actually a hobby; it's much more. So it was extra fun to see that he said, "Well, that's fairly accurate what they depict there." So I liked it.
I would almost be for if you're playing this with kids. I mean, Pandemic is pretty rad in terms of, hey, you could be a scientist, or you could be a doctor, and you can fight viruses and bacteria and stuff. Sometimes kids disagree, and sometimes they just want to be the firefighter. So there you go.
It's if your kids do, go with it. It's a good game. And it's really fun.
And we are spending a lot of time again.
I said it's gonna be cut into various parts. You don't listen to me when I say something.
But we are still on the new board game part, and not the other part.
It will be either split in 2 or 1 video each day with 1 game. So that's why I said we're gonna go down the list, and
then you have to cut all this out.
No, it's gonna be the bloopers at the end of the year.
So, Ghost Stories?
Yes, Ghost Stories first. Because Sentinels, we will take quite a while to talk about that. Oh, yeah. Just because we can.
So, Ghost Stories, again, co-op game, very evocative of the movies A Chinese Ghost Story. Priests or monks played by us fighting against ghosts and trying to get rid of Wu Feng. To go forward.
And all of his incarnations. There's not only one.
And all of his incarnations, so the White Moon expansion adds, surprise, lichens to the game. So there's a whole bunch of werewolves coming up. But it also adds new stuff like villages. So you have your tiles, your village tiles, and now you also have little stacks of towns, villages on those, and you not only have to defeat Wu Feng, you have to rescue those villages, which makes things quite difficult. On the upside, rescuing a family of villages will give you a certain bonus in terms of equipment that makes other things easier or at least or beatable at all. I think there were certain incarnations of whoever that you need to have certain items to beat them.
Or like a skill that you get added. It's not an arrow or something, it's a skill that you earn. And there's 5 different rewards that you get for the 5 families that you could rescue. And they're all really valuable. So you not only have to get them, but you have to think, or do you have to use them wisely, not too early and not too late in the game, depending on what level of difficulty you play. You might feel inclined to use a certain skill at the first incarnation of Wu Feng, but there's like 3 more in the stack, and you don't know which ones they are, and maybe you can beat the first one and save the stuff up for like the later ones, but maybe you die in between. So that's that kind of mechanic that is added to the game with White Moon is awesome. And funny enough, I felt it made the game easier. Like it felt for me that with the moonstones and all of the stuff that we had to take care of, I found it easier to beat Wu Feng than on the normal level with just the base game.
What's a moonstone?
A moonstone is a crystal.
You should
that you get as a reward when you beat ghosts, and when you have 4 of them, you can put them around the village, and they protect you in a certain way. Certain things can't happen anymore, or certain ghosts just die, which is cool.
Yeah, you get in. So.
You can exercise.
So villages is one new mechanic. On the contrary, the ghosts also have a new mechanic, which is eat villages, or kill them, or do something with them. And the haunting ghosts are not only now turning over your tiles and sort of trying to make you lose the game that way, but they're also scaring away villagers. And if they are scared onto a spot where there's no place for them to be, they die again. Then there's now a whole another layer on what's the board state, and where do you move folks, and making things a little bit more complicated. To mitigate that a little bit, you get a new ally, which is this white. It's also
like a witch, like a
white lady of something. Something.
She's like a good witch, or
no, she's a
druid. Yeah, but like with all the characteristics that we apply to ghosts, usually they're not only good people, but she's like a nature spirit, a good one. She's white, she's good.
She's
a helper. She really is.
She's one of the girls that got sacrificed to get rid of.
But she looks, before we read up on the rules,
game,
she didn't look like a helper in the game. She looked like the villain or something that made it more difficult. And then she said, no, she's helping us. Like, okay.
So now...
She looks wild.
So she also comes with a little figurine and can be...
painted.
Put in front of other girls. No, they're not.
No, they're not. But they could be.
So she can block ghosts from advancing further and flipping over tiles or eating villagers. But you only have one of her, and still a lot of ghosts coming from all sides. But she can be used to sort of block off certain areas. As I said, board control is way more important in that expansion.
What I first thought would be way more chaotic and difficult for us, but actually for me, like slowed down the rhythm of the game, was that we had to rescue the villagers too. So we fairly early on said he was fighting the ghosts and I was saving villagers. So we separated the tasks, and I did not care which ghosts are there. That's his part. I'm just there to save the villagers and get real strong with the extra equipment, and then help him out once we saved enough villagers or encountered Wu Feng or really, really difficult ghosts. With the basic game where we did not have these mechanics, I think sometimes it felt like we were running around like a headless chicken, more like trying to decide which ghost do we fight first, which one is more dangerous to us, how do we, when do we, where do we. So it felt more structured, calmer, better rhythmed, and ultimately easier for us players to win the game with that addition. like this expansion pack, which I found interesting.
I would say Ghost Stories itself as the base game is more about the moment-to-moment decisions, depending on what ghost is out there, and okay, we have to take care about that guy now, or we lose next turn, we have to. So there's no long-term planning. With the White Moon expansion adds long-term planning.
Yeah,
I think that's what you mean.
Yeah, that calms the game down a bit.
There's a string of objectives you have to deal with, or you can think about for the next 2 or 3 turns, which doesn't really. Wouldn't say it calms down the game, but it gives you some direction on where to go.
It gives you more the feeling of a structure or a rhythm, and since we were fairly good with the actions, but you always start the board game on the easiest level. We don't always go to Nightmare. Well, why would we? I still have the memories of the first games on the easy level with basic game in my head, so I compared those two.
Yeah, but the base game, once we found out that there's certain things you should do, like stay in the corners and try to get rid of ghosts there, and how to place them. I guess that also will go into the White Moon expansion.
Yes, it will.
Also new resources. Sarah just said there's moonstones now that can either be a reward for certain ghosts, or you can get them using that white ghost that's helping you out. Once you can use them as
also like a payment, like a
you can use them as a wildcard token, or you can use them to create this circle of banishment. So the game now has additional cardboard tiles that sort of expand the entire thing. One for the villagers who live, one for the villagers who died, and as I said, you get points or you get bonuses for saving villages and saving entire families of villages, but you also get negative effects once a villager is dead. So you flip them over and it says, hey, everybody has to lose a token of their color or something like that. And this circle of banishment, once you complete it, meaning you have 4 moonstones and it has a little altar in
the corners of the board, which it's just cute.
So you literally are putting little glassy moonstones on there, and once you have assembled that entire thing, you can then add a new phase that allows you to either banish a whole bunch of ghosts or do some
like of a certain color.
I think you can save people with that as well.
Yeah, you can. I think you can also like do the exorcism thing, wasn't that?
Yeah. So it's an additional. It's like the super weapon. You need to charge it up by feeding moonstones to each corner, and then once you blast that off, you can get rid of a bunch of ghosts.
And suddenly all the 4 boards are cleared. That's actually something additional that I found different to the basic game on the same difficulty level. Our boards were not as crowded. We didn't lose chi as early or at all in the game because we had so many ghosts lying there, because with this like super duper weapon you can clear out the boards like pretty easy. 6 ghosts are gone.
Well, no, so, I think it means the idea was you can roll once, but add those 4 tokens to defeat. So I don't think you will be able to defeat 6 ghosts with that.
No, that was just a number. But I was the only one who lost chi with my active monk.
Yeah, but the other passive lost as well.
No, everybody had 3 chi at the end. I was the only one who had 2, so that means I was the only one who had 1 round starting with a full board. Everybody else had full chi, which I found very interesting.
The red one neutral lost
some
as well. No, doesn't matter. But yeah,
it was killed before.
It's I think it's so in conclusion, White Moon really takes the word expansion and adds it because it adds new mechanics to the game and new strategic
It's
ways
just
in the game.
not new ghosts. There's a total different mechanic.
It's not more of the same, but it's adding a different facet to the game, and
find that interesting.
Good on them. It's interesting, and it's fun doing that, and it gives the game an entirely new direction, which we liked. So
I really liked it.
If you like punching ghosts with Shaolin monks,
go for it. And if you live in Germany, I'm so sorry, you won't get
Europe,
the White Moon anymore.
Or Europe in general.
I think UK, Amazon UK had one. No? Was it gone? Okay.
So when looking for that expansion...
For quite a while.
Europe had no copies left somewhere, at least not in the bigger stores like Amazon has, and even our local game store wasn't able to pick that up, and we weren't the first one to ask for that. Yeah. And the copy that the friend of ours brought was one of 4 remaining on US Amazon. So even if you're in the US, you might be unlucky. Maybe
they reprinted.
I think I read somewhere that they might be considering reprinting it. But well,
who knows? Anyways, if you have friends who own the game, ask them to play it with you. Yeah. It's really
go
really cool.
Punch some ghosts.
Yeah. And go punch somebody and maybe a ghost actually leads us to the last game that we're going to discuss today, which is Sentinels of the Multiverse, where you also might fight against a ghost. I think one of the villains was more like a ghosty figure. No? The third one that we played, the scary guy, he looked like a ghost to me. Maybe... Or was it a ghostly environment? We want to draw a new villain deck that is a ghost? Or maybe it's just in another expansion that we don't have.
Yeah, maybe it was a different game.
Maybe I'm just ahead of my time. No, anyways, that's the last game that we are gonna discuss. And between the date that I made the list, that we will discuss Sentinels of the Multiverse, and today we also bought one of the expansions packs already. The other one was not available, I guess. I think whatever. So there's
we ordered. So there's one when we went out, we got the base game plus the first big expansion, which is actually 2 expansions. And in the meantime, I ordered, because we can't get them here locally, from the creators, you can get mini expansions. And I think I ordered all of them, and there were 5 or 6 of these mini expansions. So it's environments, new villains, new heroes. But going back to what is the game, Sentinels is, again, a co-op game, surprise, surprise, in which...
there is a ghost.
In which everybody is playing a superhero, and that is pretty much like the comic book Golden Age superhero type of thing. And they are unknown superheroes, so it's nothing like Marvel or DC. And that's sort of what misled me on that at first, because there's some... there are already deck building games for Marvel and DC out there, and they might be good, but it's not something we're terribly interested in. I mean, yeah, maybe, but yeah, not so much. With Sentinels, the interesting thing is that it's new superheroes and new supervillains that are entirely unknown to us so far. The gameplay is everybody is getting a deck of cards that represents that specific superhero they're playing, and the villain is a deck of cards, and you are fighting that villain in an environment that is another deck of cards. And all those decks can be mixed and matched. So the game comes with a couple of superheroes, a couple of supervillains, and a couple of environments. So it could be that you are fighting the evil Baron Blade on his flying fortress, or you could fight him on the moon, or in Atlantis, or
in a cowboy saloon. I actually like that environment deck a lot.
And so you have a lot of replayability by
Yeah.
different mixing things up, and I can only strongly recommend keeping it random to keep it interesting. The game itself works. It starts with the villain turn, and the villain deck pretty much has a very strict description of what's going to happen. So each turn is start of turn, play a card, end of turn. And for a villain, that means start of turn, nothing happens. Then you draw a card from his deck. By the way, each villain comes with a little card that says, "Here are the rules for this villain. This is how you set it up, and this is what happened during gameplay. And this is when some other condition triggers, then something else happens." And typically, villains have a different set of rules on that same card. So if something happens, you flip the villain, and suddenly the serial killer now turns into a mutated beast that
is pumped with drugs that pretty much make him insane, but also kind of like more difficult even to beat.
Yeah. Or you have some villain that is like a bounty hunter, and when he flips, he's hidden. You can't hit him. You have to wait for him to decloak, so he flips back, and then you can hit him again.
Yeah.
So each card has.
I think he's Romulan. No.
Has typically a point, a life counter. You play villains to the rules they have, and the refreshing thing is that each villain plays very differently. It's not just
another name with another artwork.
Yeah,
they are like totally different.
In terms of video game jargon, it's not a bullet sponge type thing where they just have a bunch load of hit points and you just have to deal with it. But some have some really interesting mechanics, like taking hostages that you have to free, and others have deck multiplication things where they suddenly have a whole bunch of minions out that spawn more minions, and you have to take care of them before you can even go to the boss, or you have to for some villains you have to beat the sub bosses first. It's almost like a video game. You have to go through and beat his underlings and fight your way up to the big boss, and once you have beaten his underlings and his secretary, because that's a thing, then
you have to have an assistant as a
and only after that you can either get to the boss, which it's also with the rules for each villain being sort of written on the cards and you have to follow them. There's not much you can do about it. It's really, I'm throwing all this against you. You have to deal with it. And each player after that has his turn, which is also play a card from your hand, then use one of your powers. Typically, each hero has at least one power that is on his character card that is in front of you all the time. But you can play cards that introduce additional powers. And depending on the hero, those, again, can be entirely different. You have heroes that have something straightforward as you hit him for 2 hit points, then 2 hit points get off, and once he's reduced to 0 hit points, you have won the game. But you can also have a character that says, you perform a song, and depending on which instruments you have played as an equipment or which harmonies you have sitting out, you have a different song that has different effects which can either boost your other player, like your teammates, or they can destroy an environment or something like that. It's crazy stuff, but super fun to go all through that.
What I find a bit scary, especially in the first half of the game, is how quickly the life points of the heroes shrink together compared to the villain. Because there's only a very few decks that have healing capabilities, and most of them are just for the one hero that you play. I actually only remember Legacy being like one of my favorite decks. I have to say he just plays very well for me. He's actually able to heal everybody every turn that he's having. He gives them back 1 life or 1 hit point, and that's rare. And you have like between 20 and 35 hit points at the beginning of the game, and It's like one turn of the villain, then the environment is over, and you're down to 10. They shrink together fairly quickly, but what counters that a bit is the more you draw the cards with either hits or other powers or making everybody immune or stronger for like one round, the stronger the whole groups get, and the farther the game is along, you don't only make like 5 damage to a villain, but 27 in a round, for example, because there's one deck in there which I like as well, especially that one card that says count the difference between the villain's hit points and your current hit points, and that difference is the damage that you deal to the villain. So the later in the game, you're like almost dying, with a dying breath, you play that card and you say, fuck you, villain, you're dead. So I like that as well. But when you start the game and when you play the game for the first time, you're like horrified how quickly you lose hit points with the heroes, and you wonder how should I be able to win this game? This is like impossible.
So before going into too many how this game plays, there's still one more deck to explain.
Oh yeah, sorry, the environment deck.
The environment deck. So yeah, I just have to get you back in once you run away.
Rail me.
Let me tell you something about, you don't know how this game works, but I'm telling you how amazing this is.
I really like the characters. I really like them. They're well done.
So you have villains. Each villain has a rule set. You have your individual superheroes who also have a certain gameplay aspect to them, and then you have environments which affect. Well, they're not. I wouldn't go so far to say they're neutral, because they feel like they're 75% bad for you and 25% good for you. But environments are generally, well, cards that can either affect you in positive or negative ways, and the same for the villain targets as well. And yeah, so the I think the thing that is closest to describe that game is almost how an MMO plays from a video game perspective. You have different heroes, but each hero works as a class character, almost like you have someone who's dealing a lot of damage, but he's only good at dealing damage. And then you have the healer, as you heard, who's good at healing the other characters. Then you have like the guy with the songs. He's a support character he's really good at buffing all the others and getting rid of unwanted status effects and stuff like that. And in terms of damage per second, well, it's not really per second, but damage dealers, you have either
tanks,
the ones that hit really hard on a single target, or who hit multiple targets, and a lot of them, which are good against villains with a lot of minions. And as Sarah said, you also have tanks who are really good at taking damage and shielding everybody else from getting hit too often. But if you keep it random, you never really know what the combination is. And these characters are all unbalanced or imbalanced in a certain way. So there is something like a winning combination for each villain.
But where's the fun in that?
Yeah, if you know which villain you're playing against in which environment, you could always craft the heroes and the turnout of heroes that you would almost always win, or would get insanely easy to win.
What I found, coming back to that before I forget my thought, what I found interesting and which kind of frustrated me like along the play was the nemesis thing that we had. So every hero has a nemesis villains, and when both of them are in play, they each hit each other with 1 damage more, and that 1 damage can really beat the shit out of you, so to say. And we played with my with one of the characters I played was Ra, the god of the sun, and we played with his nemesis. Boy, did I lose a lot of sweat in that game.
Just to put that into perspective, I would say generally heroes have between 20 and 30 hit points.
That's what I already said.
And the damage you deal is about 4 damage on a single target, or 1 or 2 damage on multiple targets. So getting this +1 is a pretty big deal.
Especially at a villain who has like 100 hit points. So they don't come with 20. Why would they? They come with 60 to 100. Yeah, that's what we have.
That's all right if you would count all 4 heroes together.
Yeah. But at the beginning, that's what you don't do. At the beginning, you're like, okay, so these are my hit points, and he's like giving me 6 every turn. That's 3 turns, and I'm done. But what you don't realize is because when you play the game for the first time, you don't know the decks, you don't know the possibilities that you have and the cards that you might draw. That over time, because there's equipment and ongoing that stays with you. You don't play the card and then the next turn it's not there anymore. It stays with you, and you can play all of the different card texts that are on there and just hit him, and then it could be that you do 10 to 15 damage in one round with one normal hero that does not have this one card that I was just telling about a couple of minutes ago. And other than that, I really love the artwork. It's awesome.
Yeah, so from a gameplay perspective, it feels or it plays like almost a streamlined board game version of an MMO boss fight. Mm-hmm. You play your buffs, you play your equipment, you get stronger while the game goes on. And interestingly enough, I would say almost every game we won on a close margin. So it's
there was just one of the
the only games that we won clearly with a lot of advantage were typically the games where we either interpreted the rules wrong,
or where we didn't shuffle the deck well enough with the Matriarchin, was it?
Yeah.
No, what was the girl that we replayed?
The matriarch, but I don't.
Because she felt too easy.
I'm pretty sure we either skipped some rules or that's the only downside of the game. The rules and the cards are very, very, very literal, and there's a lot of times, and I don't think that's a language thing because the game is unfortunately only available in English, but. A lot of times it's like, does it mean this or does it mean that? No, this doesn't make sense.
And the word turn can be interpreted in 1,500 ways, as I just learned.
I don't know. There's a lot of confusion coming with some of those rules where you have to read them 3 or 4 times until that's what they. Now I see. You have weird things where it says like, at the start of the turn, you can do this and that. And then you look up, okay, what's a turn? And then it says, there's 3 types of turns. There's the environment turn, the villain turn, and the hero turn. But that doesn't really answer, is it, okay, at the start of every hero turn or at the start of the hero's turn, which is...
Like once or 5 times.
Yeah, and at the end, you end up with, that's now that if you literally read what's on the card and follow that
to the
letter, then I guess that's what they mean. But there's a lot of misinterpretation happening there.
Yeah, there's a lot of space for misinterpretation.
Regardless, it's a great game. Really fun, specifically for 4 to 5 players.
What I also like is in the rule book they have like a short bio for every hero. And like for example you have a daddy and a daughter, and they are 2 heroes with their own sets. And there's one expansion with the time.
The one we don't have.
The one we don't have, where those stories are switched up. And like something happens that makes the bio different, and that gives a another layer to the heroes that you play. So it's not just a deck, but you are Legacy or you are Night Mist, and you really get into that, which increases the fun factor of the game, at least for me.
Yeah, that Shattered Timelines is the name of the expansion. That introduces some villains that are actually heroes from a different timeline. So it is very comic-y. It is pretty much the comic book universe unfolded in a game. And I mean, it has the visual charm. It has some really funny things in there as well, and every card comes with a little fluff sentence at the bottom. That's something
Buddha.
Like a quote from hey, this is a quote from Bunker issue 215 when he fought this and that. So it's coming with all that lore, and it feels like there's a whole universe behind it, and maybe they have that down, but yeah, it feels like this is a comic book game from comic books that do exist somewhere in the world. But it doesn't really. It's a nice thing. It's certainly fun to play.
Did you already order the other expansion with the timeline shatter?
No, because that's not available here.
Oh. Bye-dee-die.
That concludes our first part.
Second part. 50 millionth part.
The third part. The whatever part.
The X part.
Board games we got recently and played a lot recently. Check out the board games to take on a vacation, or which might make sense to take on a vacation, or better said, board games we took on a vacation and found out that it was or was not a good idea to take them on vacation.
Also some art stuff coming up and that other vlog as well. That will be a combined art gaming vlog that we are going to shoot tomorrow. And I can tell you, there will be gnomes and pomegranates, and it's going to be magic. Bye-dee-dee.
Bye.
Bye. Make a funny face.